So there's one other thing I want to say about a lot of these songs, and something 40 Below Summer does very well. Um, and it's two things. One, they understand what a hook is and they know where to put it. And two, they let songs breathe.
Hey, before we dig in, just real quick, I know this
Yeah.
is unscripted here, but I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about something that happened over the weekend, and that was Black Sabbath had their last
Yeah.
show. I don't know if
Yeah.
you watched any videos, or clearly you didn't go to the show, as neither did I, because I wasn't going to make that plane trip. But
Yeah.
yeah, I saw the
Yeah.
pay-per-view though, so
I I watched quite a bit of clips on YouTube. Um if memory serves, it sold out pretty fast
yeah,
because I was like, man, that would be wild. And before they announced like any of the other bands, I'm like, that'd be wild to go see.
yeah,
And I mean, it was sold out as fast as I knew it existed,
yep,
you know.
yep,
But
exactly,
but yeah, and watching it on YouTube, it was all cut up and fan shot. Some
yeah,
of it was the actual pay-per-view, but yeah. What
yeah.
who was your outside of Black Sabbath and Ozzy? Who did it for you?
Well, I'd have to say, obviously, Pantera. I thought, you know, they just, I don't want to say they stole the show, but I thought they did outstanding.
Yeah, they did.
They kind of had an easy lob because they did Planet Caravan, which is like,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, well, let's see, that was on the record.
Duh.
Uh, so, but no, I thought they did great. I mean, I think everybody was pretty good. The interesting thing to me though was, I don't know if you saw this, but David Draymond got booed when he came out on
Yeah.
the stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, a lot of people are saying for
He's
political reasons.
yeah,
I
he's
tend to lean for other reasons, but I'm
well,
just
yeah,
joking.
there's that. And
Yep.
I yeah. Yeah, he's not holding back, and he never really has, and
No.
you and I
Yeah.
both have stories and stories, from our experiences with him, and
Right.
it's he's that's just how he is. He's very politically oriented, and he makes that very well known.
Correct.
Unfortunately, it's not in his music. It's just in his
In his nature, who he
everything
is.
else.
Yep. Everything
Yeah.
else.
And there
Yeah.
was some photos that he took that very much solidified his political lean. Everybody knew what it was anyway, but
Sure. Yep.
it's like, well, if you didn't think you were going to press some buttons, then you're just an idiot.
Correct. Yep. But who stood
So,
out for you?
you know, I tried to watch everybody.
Yeah.
And YouTube, of course, when you're trying to do
Yeah.
it
Yep.
the cheap way, you're gonna miss some stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I liked Pantera. I liked Lamb of God.
Yep.
Um, the cover
Rand.
was okay.
Yeah. Cover was a little
But
all right, but
they
yep.
with their with their stuff, I mean they always bring it. But the and Pantera was good.
Mhm.
I had kind of resisted watching any kind of extended videos of the Pantera celebration.
Sure.
But I did watch that one, and it was good. It's what I expected it to be.
Yep.
Zach playing dime, and I mean nobody's gonna play like that. So
Correct.
you know, really kind of put it in perspective into what exactly they were trying to do, which I hadn't really, you know, I guess hadn't really given much thought to.
Correct.
But they were good too, and it was, the watching Ozzy, it was good to see Zach playing with Ozzy and Mike Inez, playing
Correct.
with
Yeah.
Oz, which was good to see. And man, it was tough to watch because you could tell he wanted out of the chair,
Yeah. Oh my
you know.
gosh, that was the hardest thing. It was just you could
Mhm.
just see the excitement, and
Yeah.
it was overtaking all the pain and anything else that he was going through. He was just like, I just want to stand up. I just want to, you could tell he was made for the stage. I mean, he's been doing it for 50
Hmm.
years, and so
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
it was just that was tough, just
Yeah.
seeing how he just wanted to get up so
Mhm.
bad.
Like he
But
would kind of move like he was going to try and do it
yep.
and then, sit right back down
Yeah.
and they would do close-ups on him and I'm like, man, he's looking rough. And I mean, Parkinson's, it's no disease is pleasant, but that one's
Yep.
tough. And, you know, and,
But you got to
to
think
be
what he's done to his body, though.
that too.
Like the fact he's still here, it's like, oh my gosh,
Hmm.
So, but but either way, we don't have to, go too deep in this. But I thought it was just a big
Yeah.
celebration. It seemed like a big
Yeah.
party. I mean, the cool, the angles from the side, everybody was
Mhm.
on the sides of the stage watching and
Yep.
stuff, and
Yeah.
it's just a lot of love and stuff there, and
Yeah.
hands off to Ozzy. Neither one of
Yeah.
us would
For
probably
sure.
be doing this right now or anything
Yeah.
else that we've done if it wasn't for him and
Oh
Black
yeah.
Sabbath and
I mean, honestly, it's a good, um, kind of parallel to my experience because the first time I ever saw Korn or the Deftones was playing in front of Ozzy.
oh
Oz
yeah,
was kind of the original, I'm going to bring unsigned bands with, or not unsigned, but, relatively unknown bands,
sure,
with me who I think are the next up and comers. And I mean, there was a really long period of time where if you got an Ozzy tour as a young band, like that was it. You were going to make it.
correct,
And I mean, I'd have to go back through the list, but I mean, if he's not batting 1,000, he's pretty close,
yeah,
in terms of bands that he's brought out that have gone on to be, fairly successful, excluding Ozfest, of course.
correct.
That's a whole different thing.
That is a whole different thing. Yeah, because that was like a whole. I mean,
It was a
all of the
festival.
Osbournes were involved with that. I mean,
Yeah.
Jack and Kelly and especially Sharon. They were all bringing people into that mix and stuff, and
Mhm.
some good, some bad, and but it worked out what it was, and it was
Yeah.
its own enigma of
Yeah.
metal. But
Yeah.
but
And they've always been really good at discovering new talent in whatever way that they do that. And I think that that's rubbed off on a lot of other people, which is good because, unsigned bands, like, you don't get signed until you're discovered. And, how does that happen? And I've always
right,
been really fascinated with that part of the story. How do bands get to that level? Partly because I've tried to get to that level, and it's like there's no one way to do it, you
right,
know. And it's like, okay, how did it work for you guys? How did it work for you guys?
yeah,
There are some common common denominators, in people's
sure.
stories sometimes, um, yeah, Sharon and Ozzy, they were always really good about it. Do you remember the reality show
Oh
that
yeah,
they
dude,
did?
that was awesome.
I
That was
re
like just cheesy, stupid,
It
gross reality
was,
TV, but I freaking loved it.
yeah. So he's going to kill me for bringing this up. Maybe not. So there was essentially an open call for that show, and which I just recently rewatched. I rewatched the whole thing. It's on YouTube,
Oh, nice.
and I was like, oh man, yeah, this is bringing back a lot of memories for me now. Um, so my current band made it pretty far into the competition. I wasn't with them at the time. In fact, you and I were playing together at the time.
Right.
But they went down that road. I don't remember if they were in New York or LA. I think they were in New York, but they made the trip and they made it a couple, I don't even know what they called them, couple rounds through. And then they got the "we'll call you" speech, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah, I kind of
But
remember you now that you're saying that, but yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
you'll have to ask him about it if we ever have
I will.
Jesse on the podcast.
That'd be great.
Um, it's it's a pretty fun story that I'll let him tell. But yeah, it's kind of a kind of a testament to how far they were willing to go to help discover new bands and new music because not a lot of people were, you know, to that
No,
extent, and to bring it into kind of the you know forefront and into the forefront of people's minds who are in the industry and looking to sign new bands and I think that like I said kind of rubbed off on a lot of people who have started to gain success in the industry and they've started to come back for for different bands and I think that's a good segue into what we're gonna talk about today,
yeah,
and we've had this conversation about doing an album review discussion type of conversation for a while. And, I'll be perfectly honest with you. And I probably shared this with you before, but I absolutely hate album reviews. I hate it's so subjective that giving it
yeah,
a number rating is worthless to me,
right,
you know?
right,
And, so kind of what I'd like to do is I'd like to, and all of the albums that, that we talk about are all albums that we love. They're all
correct,
albums that we want people to listen to,
right.
you know? And
Yeah, exactly. Because the other thing to go to your point is who are we? It's like, know,
Yeah.
like you got to have some sort of credit and clout to actually bring something to the table to say my subjective opinion matters, you know. But I think like what you're saying, and our whole point to this is, we're not going to bring anything to the table that we don't like, and it's
Mhm.
like, oh,
Oh
I
yeah.
give this a 6.5, it's like, who cares, but it's like, oh, no, this is something that we like and we find it interesting, and this is why, and I think
Exactly.
that that matters, I mean, we're not a,
Mhm.
what is it, Dave Portnoy, like reviewing pizza, and
Yeah. Yeah.
but I mean, he literally went from kind of like, hey, I'm just this guy, to now he'll blow up any business that he steps in front of, and it's pretty cool. But either which way, back to
Yeah.
what we're talking about. So,
Yeah. So, it's, I definitely, you know, wanted to kind of provide a little bit of context, a little bit of, maybe the story behind, the record. Because having done that on these, I'm kind of listening to them with fresh ears now, which, for, albums that came out, 20, 25, 30 years ago, I've probably listened to it 1,000 times. I would like to
oh
go back
yeah,
and listen to it again, but like knowing some of the things that were going on, in their lives and kind of what the story was, kind of gives it a little bit of fresh kind of ear, I guess. And the first one that I wanted to chat over with you is "Invitation to the Dance" by 40 Below Summer.
nice.
Yeah,
Yep, one of my favorites.
yeah,
I mean, again, how could it not be? I mean, it's and we can get into the depth of where it's coming from, and
yeah,
what got them to where they were with it and how they got signed and all that stuff. I think it was
yeah.
a awesome story. But yeah, I mean, it's like what's cool about and this is something you and I were kind of talking about off mic, and I think it comes back to a good another episode we should talk about. But what makes a new metal band?
Hmm.
And I think back then in early 2000s, especially late 90s, early 2000s, it was just that overall mixture of just like aggressive metal and hip hop and just freaking laying it out there. And I think that
Hmm.
40 Below Summer epitomized that. And it's shocking to me that they weren't, they didn't blow up as big as what I thought that they could have. I think
Right.
that
Yeah.
we talk about like that JV league and all that stuff that we were talking about in our
Hmm.
previous episodes, and I think 40 Below definitely had the wherewithal and the talent, to be up there. Maybe not varsity, but at least JV. And you talk to anybody that's a new metal fan, I've never met a person that didn't know who they were and didn't like them.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Exactly. And I think, there were a couple things that we'll get into that really kind of hindered this particular record. Um, And I guess I'm old fashioned in that way where I still call them records. You
oh
know,
yeah,
being a musician, it's like, well, that's what it is. You
yeah,
recorded it. It's a record, but people call them CDs or albums or
sure.
streams or whatever now. And it drives me nuts. I'm like, no, it's a record.
Yeah, it's a record of information, of data,
Yeah.
of music, of whatever. It's a
Yeah.
record of it.
They
Yep.
recorded it at a time and place for you to listen to. So I guess, but anyways, here nor there. So, Invitation to the Dance. I do kind of want to talk through their signing story, and this took a little bit of internet sleuthing, um, but because like I said earlier, those stories are fascinating to me because I've always tried to replicate it in some fashion, because there's no one way to do it. So the way that they kind of came to their record deal was interesting because it all started with something that I don't know. I think they're making a comeback, but is the Street Team.
Oh yeah.
And do you remember the Street Teams?
Oh yeah. I was a member of a couple of them.
Yeah, me
Heck
too, for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And and for those who don't know, like the street teams were groups of people in certain areas that would go out and promote a band, their shows, their records. The label or the band would send them a bunch of promo stuff and some swag for helping, that kind of scenario. And late 90s, early 2000s, this was huge,
Big time.
huge.
Yeah, it's kind of like the
And
late 90s Patreon, if you think about it, you know?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And these networks were just everywhere. And there was a band who had a massive street team at the time because they had just blown up and they were getting ready to release. I think they were getting ready to release a very pivotal record for them, and that band was Slipknot.
Yeah.
And the leader of, I don't know if it was New York or New Jersey, the street team out there. had the 40 Below, that very first self-produced 40 Below summer record, thought it was amazing, got it to Sean Cran, clown from Slipknot, and he listened to it, and boom, that's all it took. Then they're, being flown out to LA to do showcase for a management company called No Name, which was Slipknot, Mudvayne, See the Trend,
Sure.
and then
Yeah.
boom, after that, they were doing label showcases and eventually got their deal with London Shire.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then to go from the East Coast all the
Hmm.
way over to the West Coast, for that journey, which obviously makes sense. I mean, it's, everything happens on the West Coast is, especially back then.
Yeah.
But man, what a journey though, to
Hmm.
for that band to,
Yeah.
but again, and
Yep.
this is something that, most people don't realize. And, two parts to this is, nowadays it's like crap, you can write your own thing and blow up on SoundCloud or whatever,
Hmm.
and have your
Yeah.
own following and stuff. And you don't need to worry about record labels and stuff, but back in the day, like that was the only road to getting your music out there and
Yep.
getting big. And so it was everybody's dream, that was a musician was to
Hmm.
get signed to a major label and stuff. And,
Yeah.
so, but most people don't realize is that, only 20% of bands that actually get signed get an actual record deal. And
Hmm.
so,
Get a
just
record out.
because,
Yeah.
yeah, just because you're signing a contract with somebody doesn't necessarily mean that
Hmm.
you're going to see your CD or record or whatever on the shelf,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
you go through a lot of trials and tribulations to get there.
Hmm.
And I mean, you think about it, 20%, that's it that make it through back then was,
Yeah.
it was catching lightning in a bottle in
Yeah.
so many different ways because you could have been a great recording artist, but just been a, cheesy, whatever on stage and everything. And they
Yeah.
wouldn't have signed you, because they want to be able to back that. You got to go tour to
Hmm.
support your record and make money that way
Hmm.
too. And so I won't drop any names, but I know a couple bands ourselves that I feel whatever fell into that category that they or vice versa they were really good live, amazing
Yeah.
band live, but just couldn't get it on record.
Yep.
And but it is what it is. But either which way,
Mm.
it's a cool bit to their
Yeah.
story is just,
It's and
that going through Sean. Sean has
yeah.
been, a huge part of so many bands
Hmm.
back then that it was like, it was like him and Fred Durst were doing it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
But
they were
see,
finding
it's
everybody.
right. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, it's that old Aussie mentality.
Right.
You're going back for those up and coming bands and trying to bring them out. And that became a theme within this genre as it kind of grew. You saw Korn doing it, you saw everybody doing it. They were trying to lift up the guys that were trying to come up into that kind of place on the hierarchy, I guess. But 40 Below, London Shire, they gave them 250,000 to do the record, which in today's dollars is nothing.
Right.
Back
Back then, that's
then,
a lot of money.
it got, it got the job done, got the advances and all
Yep.
that for the members taken care of, and they recorded the record at Sound City. Does that name ring a bell?
It does ring a bell, but I
So
can't tell you.
so Dave Grohl did a movie about Sound City
That's what it
a
was. There you
number of
go.
years ago. Worth watching if you haven't seen it. It's kind of it's basically a documentary about the studio in Van Nuys, California, called Sound City, and the history is pretty rich. It goes way back decades. Tom Petty, Fleetwood Mac, they all recorded there. Nirvana recorded Nevermind there.
Right.
um I'm missing a big one. Oh, Rage Against the Machine recorded the debut there, if memory serves. And then it kind of fell off a little bit. I think it changed some ownership and things like that. And by the end of the 90s, it was kind of I don't want to say the bargain, but I think they maybe got it, on a deal.
Sure.
And they recorded the record. The unfortunate part is that the record came out on October 16th of 2001.
Oh man.
And that was, for those keeping score, about a little over a month after 9/11.
Yeah.
Um, any any album, any band who had any reference to anything anti-American, to anything crashing or falling, forget it. Radio shelved it.
Right.
You were done.
Yeah.
And the lead off track on the record's called Falling Down.
Yeah.
So not to bum everybody out, but just for context,
Too soon.
uh, yeah, because the follow-up record came out about 2 years later, which in those days was a very quick turnaround.
Right.
Typically that was your, I mean, 2 years. I mean, you were probably still in your tour cycle for the
Sure.
record. So, 2 years is pretty quick. So, I have a feeling they realized what happened and kind of went back
Yeah. And it's
with the
just too
next
bad
record.
because it's like the fact that the label or, you know, whoever just, didn't give another round of, spin on that, because again,
Yeah.
that record is so good. And it's like, yeah, I understand just, I mean, because they were even shelling like anything that was aggressive at the time. I mean, everything was about
Yeah.
just coming together and unity
Hmm.
and lots of ballads and things of that nature and stuff,
Yeah.
so anything, because I remember like the Pledge of Allegiance tour to me
Yeah.
was like that was the thing of basically saying it's okay to be aggressive right now and still have a heart, according to what had just happened to this country. And and so I thought that was a cool, like, okay guys, we can laugh,
Hmm.
we can
Right.
show emotion. It's okay,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
Saturday Night Live did the same thing. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember when they, it was like, gosh, should we even do this? And then they're like,
Yeah.
guys, like I said, it's okay to laugh. It's okay. We got to move on. And
Mhm.
it's sad that the timing of that record landed when it did. And I think the same thing happened with Head Charge, actually, didn't it? I thought
Yeah.
that they released their
Mhm.
record like this at about the same time,
Mhm.
and it just was
Yeah.
like poof.
And I felt really bad for Machine Head
Oh,
because that
really?
record came out on 9/11,
Oh, did it really? Oh my
if I'm
goodness.
remembering correctly. And um, the first song off that record was Crashing Around You. Um, but also what happened, in the wake of 9/11 is everybody was off the road. Nobody was
Right.
traveling and touring. Ironically, except for Machine Head, who went directly to Europe.
Yeah.
Um, Everybody else was off the road. I don't remember for how long, but
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing a show for
It was a while.
I don't even
Yeah.
I don't even know because I was in the middle of recording a record myself during that time. And so yeah, I don't even remember how long it was.
Yeah. It had to.
But
Yeah.
and I hate to put this spin on it, but we started playing a lot more shows to kind of fill that gap a little bit because there weren't many nationals coming through. So at least here, at home we were playing quite a bit, which happy to fill the void, but sucks that why we had to do it.
Correct.
Not that
Yeah.
we were doing it or anything, but you know what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to
Oh
make
yeah.
it out to be something that it wasn't, but but yeah, it was a interesting and sad time for sure. And I think that, you know, new metal as it is, really kind of suffered a blow there,
It sure
just like
did.
everybody else, but it wasn't something that, you know, people were actively coming to. I was, and I'm sure you were too. I don't want to speak for you though, but like, you know, coming back to that, as a source of, entertainment for me,
Yeah.
and trying to, um, make myself feel better.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um. Yeah. So I just, excuse me, I just looked it up, and it's like the Pledge of Allegiance tour. I just looked up, and this is crazy to think. The first show was supposed to be in Rosemont, Illinois, on September 14th, 2001.
Yeah.
And that got postponed until October 9th. So it looks like the actual first show for the Pledge of Allegiance tour took off and or played in Denver on September 21st. So it looks like they took a couple weeks off, but they started going after it pretty hardcore, and a lot of them got
Yeah.
shuffled in that were
Good.
postponed. But yeah, that's crazy to think that three it just called Pledge of Allegiance tour. Like my
Mm.
my memory is I thought that they put that together for, just like coming
That was
together as
my
a,
recollection too.
yeah, but
So
evidently
Yeah.
unless if they had some insight. But no,
Yeah,
that's crazy. I didn't know that. So
that is wild.
yeah,
Yet
learn
another
something new.
conspiracy theory. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. We're starting that here. You heard that on the We Were Loud Once podcast.
How many
That's
of these
funny.
bands were signed to Roadrunner? I'm just kidding.
That's funny. That's funny.
So, but yeah, it was too bad that that's kind of how the release went. But going back to it and kind of re-listening to it, through these filters and looking at it a different way, I think that it was a tremendous record. There are some standout songs on here.
Oh my
Falling
goodness.
Falling Down, superb song. And the one thing I do want to mention too, and this is more the musician in me, the the room that they recorded in was meant for drums,
Right.
and you can hear that on this record. The drum sound is superb.
Yes. Well, I thought I overheard something too that like Max wasn't happy with the drums on it though. He wanted the original drums on it, and I thought I saw or read somewhere that um the producer, what was his name,
Hmm.
Garth, I think he
Mm.
ended up putting down his own drum, you know,
He started sneaking in some samples. Yeah.
samples. There you go. That's what I was trying to
Hmm.
think. But yeah, and so Max wasn't happy with it. So I
Yeah. And it
wonder how
was
good that would have been as it stood.
without those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There wasn't much information I could find on that other than he started to do that and didn't tell anybody.
Yeah, that's
And then
tough.
they found out and were upset about it. But it wasn't everything like it tends to be today. Like that's normal today.
Oh, yeah, totally.
People sample drums. I mean, that's just how it's done.
Yep.
You have recording studios that's all they do, and they just record every drum individually, and that's what it is. And then you snap everything to a grid, insert, via MIDI, and you're done.
Yeah,
And you have a super professional tight drum sound. And to me, that's great for some things, but not great for everything.
sure.
And I think that with this music, and and the point I'm really trying to get at is that you really lose something when you take that stuff out.
Correct.
There's a certain sound a room has for drums. There's a certain, it's almost something that you feel, you don't hear, and you can't replicate that with samples.
Yeah,
And maybe that's, the aging musician in me, but going back to these records, I hear that more than I do on newer releases.
no, I think it makes perfect sense what you're saying because just according to what we were talking about on our last episode, where we were talking about 40 Below Summer was we were talking about their how they just re-released their first record and the Sideshow
Yeah.
Freaks, and you can tell that that album is pretty raw. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not heavily produced, and I
Hmm.
think that that kind of captures the soul of 40 Below
Yeah.
Summer. I think they're a phenomenal band live, and
Yes.
and they're one of the rare ones that they almost, we're kind of going there, but they almost sound better live than they do on the record and stuff. But they at least sound as good, you know what I mean? Which
Yeah.
a lot of bands, not to trash on anybody, but like a lot of bands back then, it was like you weren't seeing the same band, or at least hearing the
Right.
same band, I should say.
Yeah.
When you go see them live, you're like, that's
Hmm.
them. That doesn't sound anything like that, But
And
um,
once the labels started throwing money behind bands, they started to spend money on producers, and then they just
yeah,
overproduce it into the ground. And
yeah,
that's when you end up with, I won't name any of those records, but some of the way overproduced records that are out there
sure.
from this time period.
Yeah. And
So, but
sometimes they need it though. I mean, it's like you listen
for sure.
to, some records you listen to a demo. I mean, I'd say even ours, it's like I listen to our demo and then I listen to our record. I'm like, oh my gosh, what were we thinking?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we do have some songs on that demo that we didn't actually put on the record, which
Mhm.
is, a little
And they were
sad
some of my
because
favorites.
yeah, there's some, yeah, mine too. There's some really, really good tracks on there. And,
Yeah.
you
And
got to
you
find those
can,
deep dives, but
yeah. And we can have this conversation off mic, but I definitely don't remember why we didn't put some of those songs on
I
there.
don't know.
Um, Maybe we were just tired. Anyways,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that's a different conversation.
Sure.
But so there's one other thing I want to say about a lot of these songs and something 40 below summer does very well. Um, and it's two things. One, they understand what a hook is and they know where to put it. And two, they let songs breathe.
Yep, that's a
So
good way of
many
putting it.
bands, especially today, they don't know one, what a hook is and how
Right.
to let a song breathe. Because when you let a song breathe, you're providing context and you're adding a certain feeling and vibe to a song that is going to make the hook hit harder.
Yes.
And too many people just don't understand what that is. And in going back through all of these songs, whether it was a vocal hook or an instrumental hook or whatever it was, they knew exactly where to put it 9 times out of 10 right after the chorus. And then they knew how to let the verse breathe a little bit.
Yep.
And it's like you're just waiting for that hook to come back around. And seeing that thing live, it adds so much more of a punch instead of
Sure.
just
Yeah.
going,
Well,
100 miles an hour the entire song.
right.
And they do that very, very well.
Yeah, I think so. You're exactly right, Dan, and that's the difference between people who are doing it for the purpose of the song and rather than
Mhm.
trying to be some sort of gimmick or something like that.
Right.
And it's funny that you're bringing this up because I was just talking about this a couple days ago with somebody else. So like Jared Dines, do you know who he is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's very, very popular on YouTube's and
Mm,
everything.
guitar YouTube. Yep.
Yep. And one of the things that he does I think is really cool because he's gained such a following now is he does a lot of contests. Like I'm going to put this together.
Hmm.
I want the drummers out there to put, a drum track to it. I want the guitarist to put something. I want the vocalists and stuff. And he recently did one. Excuse me. He recently did one where it was I think him and Howard Jones were working together
Yep.
and he put together a track and wanted some vocalists to put, their rendition over the top of it and so first and foremost it was like everybody I'm not going to shoot on anybody here, but they all did their own thing and they all did good. I personally think a couple of them might have been written by AI because just the cadence of it, I know how AI writes
Entirely
songs.
possible these
Yep,
days.
I think that they were written by AI, a couple of them, and that's fine, whatever. But the one thing is like you could definitely tell the people that knew song structure, and you could
Yeah.
tell that they were writing like these older people. Like this guy, he wrote a hook. He knew the hook was there. He knew where to put in the proper cadence to it, to that even just the way that he was singing it and stuff like that, it was catchy. And some people, they're just throwing it all on the freaking table, it's like wow, and it's like okay, but
Hmm.
nobody's going to want to come back and hear that. It was impressive what you did. You have a lot of talent, but there was nothing there that brought it back. And that's stuff that like
Yeah.
Nirvana and stuff like that is was so good at, is that you don't have to throw down all of this noise. It's
Hmm.
actually, you got to remember what you're there for and you're writing a song. And again, like you said, the hook to me is very, very important. And that's where you line up the difference between a band like Cold Chamber and a band like 40 Below Summer.
Hmm.
And Cold Chamber, to me, mad respect for them, but they were the band that was like, we're going to write out this gimmick. We're going to write nonsensical lyrics. We're going to just have this all out
Right.
aggression and have the aesthetic that goes with it. And then you got 40 Below Summer. It's like, I don't really care what they look like. I'm going to find out at the
Exactly. Yeah.
show. And it's like,
Hmm.
I'm going to go to the show and see this because I want to see that freaking band live because I love this song and I love this song because it's got a good hook to it.
Yeah. For sure. And those kinds of things, again, unfortunately, are rare. And they're not
Right.
really easy to do. It takes a certain
Oh,
amount of
gosh.
talent
Yeah.
to understand what a hook is, and a hook is not the riff.
No.
A lot of people think that the riff is the hook, and it's like, well, maybe, but maybe not. You know, and it takes a lot of thought and ingenuity to realize what a hook is and what it isn't, and then where to put it. Because sometimes it is in the chorus. It may
Yep.
not be what some people call it a tag or right after the chorus.
Right. Sometimes it can be a breakdown, Sometimes there's some songs
Yep.
that it's like, that's all right, but then it's like, whew, that breakdown is amazing.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
actually saw that recently on one of our songs that was out on YouTube, and it's funny because like we'll write something and be like so intimate in in the song and stuff. We know it
Hmm.
from top to bottom and everything. And then like people's take on it or whatever is just really interesting and what they gathered from it.
Yeah.
But that this one particular song was Warlick. And,
Mm-hmm.
people are saying like, man, that freaking breakdown on that song was insane, and it was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. We had a little bit
Yeah.
of a tribal influence, almost soulfly influence to it.
Very
And,
much so. Yeah.
it was fun. And, like live was really cool. We had Paul go up behind the drums and he'd
Hmm.
help Cameron on the drums and stuff. And it
Yeah.
was, I mean, if we would have took that to a further extent, I could imagine at some point, maybe we would have pulled up more drums on stage and done something bigger with that, but either
The
which
en-
way, it was
yeah, and
fun.
the environment that we were in at the time, I think the probability of that happening is very good.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Just because our the people on our team and what they were, what their resumes included. But
Sure.
kind of getting back to the hook thing, there's a
Yeah.
couple on this particular record and they're in two different places, and I want to point them out because they are infectious, and I know you
Sure.
know them. But the hook in Step Into the
Oh,
Sideshow, where it's just a
dude,
vocal hook, it's just vocals.
it's insane.
I'm
It's
playing it in my head right now.
right, exactly. It's like I know exactly what, I know that song by heart and
Hmm.
but again, the hook on that thing is just insane. But again, to me, that whole song is almost a hook because the
Yeah.
way that they painted out that song essentially from beginning to end, where they placed the chorus, where they placed that breakdown, which is absolutely insane.
Hmm.
How they did the breakdown,
Yeah.
and they didn't make that song too long, which again, so many people will screw that up. They'll actually have a good song and they'll like, hey, here's a decent hook in the chorus, and then they'll
Hmm.
beat it to death for three
Yeah.
minutes at the end of the song.
Yeah.
But no, it was just to
How
me
long is that song? Uh,
3 minutes, 3 minutes 4 seconds.
3 minutes and 4 seconds. Yeah.
Yep, yep, and it's just put together perfectly, And to me, anywhere 2:30 to me is too short. 3:30, you're kind of pushing it. 3 minutes on
Yeah.
that's a money shot
Yep.
for a song. It's perfect. So
100%.
yeah,
And another good example is kind of the hook piece in Falling Down, the song right
yeah,
after it, and that's one that comes right after the chorus.
right,
And it just goes to show you that they knew what they were doing. They were very talented composers and
right,
songwriters, and not just talented at their instruments, which again, in this particular genre, wasn't exactly common,
right. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and
unfortunately.
then like I think that a lot of yeah,
No disrespect
unfortunately.
intended to anybody.
Right, but I think a lot of people at the time, especially I mean a lot of these guys in these bands at this age were early 20s and stuff,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
a lot of them they didn't pick up an instrument until their late teens or whatever. So they've been a
Yeah.
few years into writing something and
Yeah.
so but I just remember a lot of times it's like, oh, I don't care about a hook and stuff. I'm artistic and it's like, well,
Right. Yeah.
is it that you don't care? Is it that you don't know how?
Right. You don't know what it is.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I mean, it's like every song on that thing is just, it's you know how it is. There's a lot of albums out there from different bands where they'll write four, five, six songs that are actually good, and
Hmm.
then it's like, okay, now we need filler, we need fodder,
Yeah.
and they'll just throw this together, and
Hmm.
you can just tell that a lot of bands put that together. This is not. This is every single song was very intentional,
Yeah.
and one thing that they do really good is again song placement on the album. And
Hmm.
they let you with "We Are the People" where it starts off. They let you know exactly what they sound like, who they are, what this
Hmm.
record's going to be like. They show all their talent in every single instrument, every single band member, and it's a good punch to the face. But it's also not like like overly aggressive where you're like, okay, that you can tell, like we were talking about, the songwriting in there is incredible. And then it just starts going. And it's like, and the cool thing about 40 Below Summer is like they have no problem dipping down into like the weed zone, with
Right.
the
Yeah.
black lights, and they're like, whoa, we're
Oh yeah.
tripping here. They have no problem going there. They have no problem doing just beautiful ballads and all the different
Hmm.
harmonies that Max Illidge can do. And
Yeah.
but then just like, one thing that I loved about that, I'm sorry, I'm going to go on a tangent here about
No,
Max
you're
because I
good.
just think he's so good, is he didn't care if he was using a $60 microphone and
Yeah.
like you could just the things that he would do with that microphone using it as an instrument. Nobody does that. You
Yeah.
don't cup the mic in the studio and like, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like he did it and it's like some people
Mhm.
play around with it on stage, but he did it on stage and in the
And
studio.
in the
And like,
studio.
I thought that was so cool. It's like, man, he leaned into it. He was like, I do whatever I want and I'm going to
Yeah.
play around with this and have fun with it.
And it kind of, became a trademark of his in a certain sense. And he kind of became known for it. And
Yep.
which is really cool because as a vocalist, it's really, it's incredibly difficult to do that, to put
Yes.
your own spin on, like your voice is your voice, but putting your own spin like that on a vocal delivery is just is pretty impressive
It's
and
hard, especially at
mind
that
blowing.
time when everybody's screaming and stuff. It's hard to
Hmm.
have your own, because everybody, a lot of people can have different singing voices. They can have different, like I said,
Yeah.
cadences and the way that they do things, different layering techniques. But again, the screams are like there's so many of them that are alike, and so it's really hard to set yourself aside from that. And like doing something, I mean, dare I say, almost like a cheesy little move, but it ends up being like this cool sound. It's like, how come nobody else thought of doing that, And it's so simple, but
Right.
he just made it his technique. And you listen to their new record today, and he's doing it again. I'm like, good,
Yeah.
dude. That's
Yeah.
that's you, and everybody knows that's Max Elledge, and that's what he does. And it's
Right.
like that's so badass that he continues to do it. And he just leans into it, and it sounds great.
Yeah.
It's such a
Yeah.
silly little thing, but it works.
Yeah. Exactly. And as a guitar player, I would be remiss if I didn't shout out the two guitar players, on the record
Uh,
because they
yeah,
have this innate ability. I mentioned kind of letting a song breathe, and they do this in such a melodic and vibey kind of way. And, whether it's a clean part with a backwards note over it, it creates this soundscape that a lot of people were trying to do but could never quite nail.
yeah.
And those two guys, Joey and Jordan, they really nailed it, which became kind of a staple for them in records, thereafter for the
Right.
band, which was exciting because after hearing this record, I knew what I wanted on the next record, and I got it.
Yeah.
Like they had their sound, and it's interesting to think of them kind of as a metal band because in certain respects they are, and in certain respects they're not. But I think that kind of was the new metal thing. If that
Yes,
if that makes sense.
absolutely. Oh,
Like it
absolutely.
was supposed to add up, but it doesn't.
Correct.
Or wait,
Yeah.
no, I said that backwards. It wasn't supposed to add up, but it does.
But it
That's what I
does. There
meant.
you go. Hey,
That's what
and
I
it
meant.
go you could do it the other way if you want. That's fine. But no, I thought what was great about Joey though was again, you see him in a crowd, you'd never know that he was this freaking stellar, metal guitarist,
Yeah.
And I just remember like when you and I went and saw them and they played with El Nino and Flaw.
Mm,
And like I knew Max Illidge. I didn't know him
mm,
personally, but I seen him do interviews and stuff before and whatnot. And so,
yeah.
but I just never really paid attention to the rest of the band. And I just remember seeing Joey like walk around, getting everything together on stage and everything. He's walking around with a backpack on,
Mm.
and he looks like he's like a substitute teacher or something at the time. He's just like short hair, just
Yeah.
like a normal
Yeah.
dude. And I'm like, I just remember thinking like, and I see all those memes. I'm sure you've seen those memes too, where it's like if your guitarist looks like this, you're about to die in that
You're
pit.
about to die in the pit. Yeah. Yeah.
That's he was
Yeah.
like the first one to do that. And
Yeah.
gosh dang, he was good, but he was great live too, man. He freaking got into it and
Yeah.
just so good.
That must be a Jersey thing because
Yeah,
Rizzo from El Nino did it too.
yep, yep. It's got
And I
to
don't
be.
know. I don't know if he would do the spin kicks with the backpack on, but he used to wear his backpack while he played.
Yeah,
Rizzo did. I don't know if he still does, but I recall a couple times seeing him play. It may have been with Soulfly, where
yeah,
he had the backpack on playing
yep,
and he would do the spin kicks and he's like, oh, yep, there's the backpack. What is in there? What could you possibly need that you're going to have time to get out of that bag?
yeah.
He probably just didn't want to put it down. And,
It could be. It could be.
being a musician, I kind of don't blame him. Things go missing all the time.
Right. Yep, exactly. Or that, or he uses it for his like centrifugal force, when he's doing his spin kicks.
Yeah.
You never
Yeah.
know.
That's
You
where he
never
puts his
know.
wireless packs.
That's right. That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but again, if we're mentioning everybody on there, Carlos Aguilar. I mean, what an
Hmm.
incredible drummer. Again, I love his style where it's very much you can tell the hip hop influence, but he has no
Yeah.
problem swapping it over to just heavy metal,
Mhm.
riffing on the drums
Right.
and but again, he's got such a cool fluid, you know, motion with everything and stuff that it's like he can get into the melodic side of it with like the high toms and everything
Hmm.
and but man, but again, he's just like very much like Seven Dust, with Morgan
Hmm.
Rose. It's just like just boom, boom. I mean, he
Yeah.
just plays with a lot of power and everything. And but again, his writing ability is huge. And it's every single album that he's done. That's the other cool thing is again what we're talking about with vocalists. It's hard to kind of make your own sound, and I feel like he does. I mean, I feel when you hear his style on every record that he does and everything, it doesn't matter if it's a slow song or a heavy song or whatever. It's always Carlos. You can definitely tell who he is
Yeah.
and what he's doing, and I love that. Even to this day, their new record and everything, it's just or just
Hmm.
overall sound, it's
Yeah.
always the same and I love it. So
Yeah. I think he's one of those drummers that knows how to get creative with his accents.
yes,
And
that's a good way to
a-
put it.
again, that's a very it's not common with drummers, where they get that creative with where they place accents. Some drummers they like to just stay on the beat and
Yeah.
that's fine for everybody and that's great. Others like to get creative and he's one of those and it makes the music more interesting. If I had to put money on it, I would be willing to say he had a lot to do with the arrangements as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure it was a group thing, but I would think he had quite a bit of influence on song structure and things like that.
I'd say so too. And it'd be really interesting. And hopefully we can get some of these guys on the show at some point and interview them because
Yeah.
I'd really like to see what their influences are, and especially like at that time where you're creating essentially a genre from nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
2001, that was still very, very infantile when it came to new metal. I mean, even though Korn started in like what, 94,
Right.
everything was 94, 95, 5, 6 years isn't that long into a
Right.
genre. So
Limp
you're still
Bizkit took
cutting
up all
teeth.
the bandwidth during that time period anyway.
Right, exactly. And I mean, that's the other part of it too, is, like Limp Bizkit was, blowing up huge, had blown up
Mhm.
huge at this period of time and stuff. And so again, that's where that line was coming down the middle of either you're really hip hop influenced or you're, you know, some sort of weird aesthetic and stuff like that, that
Right.
influence and everything. And obviously you could tell which way 40 Below Summer is going,
Hmm.
but it was funny because like their name of their band is I'd really like to know more about where they came up with that
Yeah.
because um it does have a certain like 30 Seconds to Mars kind of a feel to it, it's like it does almost sound like an emo band or something. And so
Right.
but you remember it.
Yeah. The three name band name
Yeah.
was relatively popular back then.
And I tell you what,
Not for us. Ours
nope.
was one. We went
I
the
was
other
gonna
direction.
say I think it's easier to come
We
up
were
with a band name
minimalistic.
with yes. I think it's easier to come up with a band name that's 3 words than it is. No offense to 40 Below Summer, but I think it's easier to come up with a band with 3 words than
Right.
one
Yeah.
word because
Yeah.
everybody's done the one words and you're trying to do
Yeah.
something that like sets you apart, kind of lets everybody know what your business is
Hmm.
and be memorable.
And it's more difficult to determine if it's stupid or not if it's just
Correct.
one word.
Yes. Yeah. You got one shot.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
That's it.
And I remember at the start of Downshift, we went back and forth on what that band was going to be called. It was almost a two-word band name.
Oh, really?
It
So I
was
don't know
almost
if I know
Poop
the
Dish.
story.
It was almost
Well,
Poop Dish.
I know.
True story.
It's
I
awesome.
thought it was
I
somebody
had
said it,
no
and I
idea.
somebody said it, and I thought it was hilarious.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
dude.
I
Poop
know
dish.
somebody was the voice of reason. I'm like, no, we're not naming our band Poop Dish. I'm like, what does that even mean? I don't know. Who
That
cares?
is so funny. Isn't that
But
funny? So let's go off on a little tangent here. I'm sorry about band names.
no,
So
it's funny. It's
it's
fun.
funny. So like, okay, so I'm gonna give you a little history about myself. So
Yeah.
the first band I was ever in, I actually played bass for, and I was
Mm.
17 years old at the time. Ugly Kid Joe and Poison
Mm,
and all these other bands were really hot, and that was our influence. And we went by the name Sinai, and like it just total big hair band, sound of the name and everything, But
right.
it was nothing, like a little bedroom project kind of a thing, playing in my friend's
Yeah.
bedroom and stuff. And I think we played one live show, but it was all right. I played bass, like I did all right.
Why was that in
Yeah,
quotations?
I played bass, It's like it was not good. We were basically a cover band, and I could
Yeah.
do it, it was all right. My brother played guitar, and our good friend played drums and whatnot, and it was all right. It was fun. It was,
Did you
I was
sing? Did you
17.
sing in that band?
No, I
No.
was just a bass player hiding in the back, And again, I was 17. It was fun. We had a good time with it. My next band was started after college, and it was me and my roommate. When we were in college, we didn't even have a band. We were just like roommates in college. We're like, we're gonna start a band someday. And like we really loved how people took Stone Temple Pilots and used the first letters of it and said
Mm,
STP. And so like we want
hmm
to do something like STP, but
hmm
let's do like PST. And like, okay, cool. So let's come up and brainstorm some words together that is PST. And so we came up with polyester sex toys. And
Nice.
so yeah, and so we got out of the college and stuff, and so we, like, hey, let's start a band now. All right, do it, and so we actually got together a band, and I bought a drum set because I could play drums at the time. I
Yeah.
started in high school,
Yeah.
and so I bought my own drum set. My brother, he could play guitar, and so we had him join, and had a bass player join, and we started the band Polyester Sex Toys, and it
I
was
am
fun.
jealous. I'm
Yeah,
not
it
gonna
was.
lie. I am jealous.
I thought that was a rad name. So what's weird about that name though is that okay, so we were based out of Fremont, Nebraska, which is a
Mm.
town of roughly 25,000 people, whatever. And I remember there was a time we were going to sign up for this battle of the bands, and we had
Oh yeah.
overheard that people were upset or something that we were joining or something like that. And I was like, well, is it because of our name or what? And so either I don't know. It was a weird story. And so like I'd overheard that a couple bands had dropped off because we were coming on, and I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense. So then they canceled the whole Battle of the Bands thing, and essentially it was because of us. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I'm like, okay, well, evidently they did. Maybe the people throwing it on, oh, they got the word sex in their name. I'm like, well, you heard of Sex
Right.
Pistols or something, like whatever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But anyways, years later, um, I end up finding out that, and I don't we okay, how do I say this here? So I ended up finding out from one of my good friends that I met later on in life that there was another band in Fremont, and they had the name Polyester Sex Toys.
No.
So do not, like, how the heck does that happen in
Random.
all
Yeah.
so I don't think it can be random, because I'm like, I think that I don't want to dare say that somebody ripped off our band name, but I'm telling you,
Right.
like, we were in our dorm room when we came up with that band name, and then like 4 years later, we actually did it.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can think of is that my buddy or myself, we must have told somebody, and then it kind of trickled down as somebody stole that name or whatever. But either which way, so it turned out that that band people didn't like, and they thought it was us that was joining the battle of the
Oh.
bands. And so these guys were kind of dickheads or whatever. And so like everybody's like, no, we're not doing it or whatever. So I don't know. That's the story of what I heard. And I was
Whoa.
like, what the heck? I was like, it was weird. But either which way,
Man, what
fast.
are the odds
I
that
know.
two bands are named that?
Yeah. Again, it couldn't be
That's crazy.
happenstance. I mean, it could be. I mean, obviously, you
Probably
have
not.
bands that are named similar all the time, but in the same
Sure.
town, as like it had to been somebody that overheard our name and
Yeah.
stole it. But either which way, I don't care. But
Wow.
but we eventually kicked out our. Uh, Let me rephrase this. We didn't kick out. It was a mutual decision of our singer to leave, who's still one of my best friends of all time, still,
Yeah.
and so mad respect to him. But we were starting to turn towards the new metal, and we were
hmm
doing a lot of, like, we wanted to cover Cold Chamber and some other stuff.
Yeah.
And so he was like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to bow out. And we're like, okay, sounds good. So he bowed out. I was doing, like, basically singing for my drum set as we were doing, practicing and trying to find
Ooh.
a new singer. And then finally, my bandmates were like, dude, no offense, but you're a better singer than you are a drummer. And I'm like, ouch. So I'm like, okay, we'll try to find
Yeah.
a drummer or singer. We ended up finding a drummer first. And so we created that band and we essentially the same guys. We just went with a different name and new music.
Yeah.
And we went by Vortex. And we got
Okay.
pretty popular. And
I remember Vortex. Yeah.
yep, we played together.
Yeah.
And so we actually got pretty popular, like I said, in the scene and played quite a few shows. And it was pretty cool. We got a lot of attention in our hometown and stuff, and we were doing it.
Yeah.
And this is the whole reason I'm leading up to this about the band name thing is we uh, we ended up kicking out our drummer for a different drummer. And out of respect to our first drummer in there, he had asked that we not use the band name. And I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. I was like trying to be non-confrontational because I freaking was so empathetic to the fact that we were
Sure.
kicking this poor dude out. And I was like, okay, dude,
Yeah,
whatever, just don't be
that's
mad
never
at me.
fun.
No, it sucked, And so we're like, okay, we'll just change our band name. It's no big deal. We've done it before. Who cares? So then we changed our band name. Dumbest decision we ever made, and we changed it to an evil, and
Hmm.
which was fine. But the thing was, like, dude, we lost all of that work. It was
You
gone.
kind of
Like
start
every
over.
single fan that we had, they didn't follow along with the fact that we
Right.
changed band names and stuff. And so all the work that we put in, for Vortex, it was just gone. I mean not just fan base. I mean, we played at the Ranch Bowl all the time.
Hmm.
I went in and like, hey, we're now in evil and stuff. It's like, give me your record. Nope. No, no, no. You don't have following. You don't have this. That. It's like, what? It's like, holy crap. Well, we used to have. It's like we just lost all of our presence and all of our
Yeah.
shows and everything. God, it just sucked.
Yeah.
So,
That's a tough one to come back from. And I remember we had a lot of those conversations too, about, our band and if we were going to keep the name.
yep,
And after we had some departures and ultimately decided, yeah, we'll take the flack for keeping it because
yeah,
it's going to be easier to communicate the change to the audience where as opposed to starting over.
sure, yeah,
And
because you
I think
change that
that,
band name and you're
yeah,
starting over.
yeah,
It's
it's
crazy.
basically a whole new band, whether you're playing the same songs or not, doesn't
Yeah, and
matter.
I've seen some bands that are able to pull it off, obviously, especially the ones that are able to pull it off when they get signed, because it's like, well, they're a local town, they might not know who they are, but they're going to quickly. But the thing is like they're having a label push them now, and so they're going on
Yeah,
tour with whoever and stuff like that. So it's a lot easier to recover for something like that. But
right.
on
And
your own with no backing, it's tough.
exactly when you're trying to kind of ascend in a local market, and it's a little easier to do it when you have, like you said, the backing of a record company. Or I mean, and here's a great example, happened to Linkin Park.
Correct.
That
Yeah,
was the
that's who I was
combination
thinking
of two
about.
bands when they got signed, and it was a completely new thing. So,
Right.
but anyways, so
Anyways,
any guess at record sales on this record?
oh man, it's gotta be. I don't know, man. I have no idea. I'd say I'd say 250,000.
Mm-mm.
Probably a lot lower, huh?
Hmm.
Oh my gosh.
It's
100,000.
just it's just north of 100,000.
Oh my goodness, that
Yeah,
sucks.
I think timing is what hurt this record,
Yeah,
and of course that doesn't include streams. That's pure album sales.
sure.
Streaming puts a whole different
Of
spin
course, yeah.
on how those things are tabulated. So, but yeah, 100,000, just north
That
of
blows my
100,000
mind,
copies.
dude.
Yeah,
Wow. So I
it's
wonder
kind
what
of
the morning after did though.
that I don't have in front of me, but I imagine it did a little bit better
Yeah,
because they
because I think
weren't.
that was a little bit more produced and had a little bit more oomph behind
Mhm.
it.
And they
Um,
weren't fighting the
right.
I don't even know what to call it. They weren't fighting something like 9/11. They
Correct.
weren't
Yep.
trying to compete with that. I don't want to, that's not how I want to say that.
No, no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
But yeah,
they
well
weren't having to deal with it.
they weren't having to deal with just obstacles. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean they're actually kind of lucky that they got a second record when you think about it. But
Mhm. Very much
were they
so.
from I wonder if they're on a different label.
I don't recall. So London Sire, they either were sold or went out of business. I don't recall. but it was ultimately taken over by Reprise.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I
so
just
I don't
looked it
know if
up.
Werner put out the morning after or not.
Yeah, it says the album was morning after was released by Razor and Tie Records.
Oh wow, okay.
So
So they went there before. Maybe it was Razor and Tie that got. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. That's
Those
interesting.
that time period was when a lot of the smaller labels were getting eaten up by the bigger guys.
Yes, big
And
time.
and I was actually around this time, 2001, I was interning for Immortal Records. And Immortal at the time was the home of Korn and
Yep.
Incubus and 30 Seconds to Mars and a host of other bands that, I've since revisited, for conversations, between you and I. But, I believe Virgin bought them real fast. So I think it was
Which would
Virgin.
make sense.
Yeah. So they were just all getting eaten up. But they also had kind of a flagship band. And for Immortal, it was Korn. I'd have to go back and look at Razor and Tie, but,
Yeah,
or London Sire for that matter. But, but yeah, just
that's
north of
crazy.
100,000. I'm glad that they got a second record given those sales. But
Correct. And you know, 100,000 records. I mean, that's actually pretty good when you think about it, but especially with the obstacles that they had up against them and stuff. But I
yeah.
just think about like how good and iconic that record is of that time.
Mm,
And that's what's shocking. And so it's like,
yeah.
please, everybody understand we're not talking disparaging about, you
Right.
know, about this at all. It's just a shocker of how good of a record it was, and it just
Hmm.
didn't take off like it could have.
And,
But I
back
also think
then,
they didn't have any video backing on it either. I don't remember any, music videos. I
I
think there was like
think
a
they were,
live video or something, and then
mm, I think they were going to do one. And I don't know if funding was pulled or
yeah,
what happened, but I believe it was related to the events of 9/11.
gosh, that's crazy, man.
Hmm. Or and I don't know any of this in pure speculation, and I shouldn't do it, but I'm going to. It could have been wrapped up in the $250,000 advance they got, and
Oh,
given that they weren't able to support it like they probably needed to, they probably saved their money. I don't know that for a fact. That I would be an option I would have considered at the time, but
that's a good point.
yeah, who
Yep.
knows? So, but definitely a record that everybody should check out. It is frequently on whatever list of most underrated new metal records. It's almost always going to be on that list. So definitely a record that everybody should go check out for sure.
Agreed. If you don't know 40 Below Summer, you should. And please go check them out. They are on Spotify and buy their stuff if you can. Support them because they're trying to make a comeback. And that is a band
Mm,
that deserves a comeback. And they're just cool dudes,
absolutely.
man. Just good dudes. And they're staying true to their name. They're not trying to evolve into something else. And they're trying to give
Mm.
the fans back what they have gotten used to. And yeah, just check it out.
It's and kind of one last thing about it, it was nice that they didn't try and go because a lot of bands started to go the metalcore road, and I'm glad that they never did, you know,
Right. Yep.
um, because I saw that happen and ultimately kill a lot of bands from this era
Correct. Yeah, and
because
how
they
could
tried to
you?
stay relevant.
Yep, yep. And that's the thing. I mean, you look at like Limp Bizkit or whatever. Could you imagine them going metalcore? There's no way. And so it's
It
like
would
that's the
probably
thing.
be
It's like
hilarious.
it would, it would have been hilarious. Um, but yeah, I think when you have that such a heavy hip hop influence, I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, Max is known for his rapping ability and
yeah.
and stuff, and
You got to lean into that.
you gotta lean into it. And so they died on their sword and they're coming back there, which is
Yeah.
good. So kudos to them. Hopefully they blow up again and hopefully we see the new metal movement, way bigger than what it was, and see these
I think
godfathers of it ride it out.
absolutely. And I think with kind of the more modern new metal bands, I hope that a lot of folks go back and they listen to these records that you can hear
Yeah,
things that these bands were doing 25, plus years ago. You can hear it in
correct.
these modern new metal songs.
Yeah.
And
That,
it's a direct line. So go back and listen to the OGs.
yep. Agreed.